Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing cover songs by hair metal bands. My favourite and least favourite, part one. Okay, so there's going to be another part to this because as I was going through my collection, looking for cover songs to talk about, I noticed I had quite a few. There are quite a few. In fact, I'm probably not going to cover them all. In fact, I'm not going to cover them all, but I'll cover some that I found in my collection that I thought interesting to talk about. So, the interesting thing too, with a cover song is, especially some of the cover songs that are in my collection, is back in the day when I first heard the song, I often didn't know that it was a cover song. I mean, sure, there's some examples where it's like, straight away I knew that I heard that song before. But some of them are a little bit more obscure, or I just hadn't actually come across that song before. So there are some times where I've thought it was an original song by the band, and then found out later, it was actually first recorded by another band. So and I'll sort of talk about that, I guess, as I go. So and I will say too, for the most part, most of the time, if it's a good song, it's a good song. So if I like the cover song, I usually will like the original. There are some exceptions, but likewise, if I like the original version, someone covers that song, I'm probably going to like it. You'd have to be probably do a pretty bad version of it for me not to like it if I do like the song. Because a good song's a good song. And likewise works the other way too, So if the original wasn't a song I particularly like, I'm probably not going to like the cover version of it. So first up, I'm going to go through some of my favourites, or at least cover songs that I don't mind or quite like, before I go into my least favourite. So first up, I'm going to talk about a band that unfortunately don't have this album, is not on vinyl. So this is the CD. This is the band Bad Romance and Code of Honor. This is female fronted, and the singer is Joanna Dean, who had a solo album prior to this, which is fairly similar. But it's bluesy, sort of hard rock, and you could say it almost sounds a little bit like a female fronted Cinderella. Interestingly enough, there's a duet she does on this album with Tom Kiefer from Cinderella. And the song that they do a duet on is the song Love Hurts, which of course is originally, originally it's an Everly Brothers song, but I knew it more as the version that Nazareth did. And a good song. I like the song. They do a great version of it. It's nice to hear the female-male vocals. And you can check it out. Check it out on YouTube. There's video of Tom and Joanna Dean doing the song, a duet of the song in concert, and it's really good. So you can check it out on YouTube as well. But good song, and I like the cover version of that song. All right, one more CD, and then the rest will be vinyl. This is Talisman and the album Life. Jeff Scott Soto is on vocals for this one, and they do a cover of the song Crazy by Seal. Now, I like the original, but I like this even more. It's just got a little bit more rock to it. And Jeff Scott Soto, such a great vocalist. Nothing wrong with Seal's version. It is a great song, like I said, at the start. A good song is a good song, but I love their version of it. Really good. And this is a good album. But interestingly enough, it's probably my favourite song off the album, even though it's a cover. And often, while I can quite like some of the cover versions, they usually don't become my favourite song on the album, but I think in this case, this might be my favourite song off the album. So Talisman, Life, and their cover of the Seal hit song, Crazy. All right, onto the vinyl now. Hurricane. This is a band that their first album was co-produced by Bob Ezrin and Mike Klink. Now, interestingly enough, that with Bob Ezrin having a hand in production, they decided to do a cover of the song I'm 18, which, of course, originally was done by Alice Cooper. And, of course, Alice Cooper also had Bob Ezrin produce him when he did that song. So it is a good song. I like it. Did it really need to be on this album? I think they're a good band. They've got lots of great songs. And I think it was also released as a single. I'm not sure it was the best choice, but, they do a good version of it. But it's one of those things where it is a good song. They do a good version, but I'm not sure it was really necessary. But there we go. I think, too, one thing I haven't mentioned is the fact that, a lot of these bands who do these cover songs possibly getting a little bit of pressure from their record company to do this, because they've noticed that some bands have had hits, and we'll come across those as we go through these. You know, it actually was successful for a lot of bands to have a cover song, cover either a well-known song or even a lesser-known song that they think that might have hit potential. So, yeah, sometimes, you know, there's just something that the bands kind of get talked into doing, not necessarily something they want to do. And then also sometimes the cover song isn't on the album, but they'll do a version of it and put it on their B-side. And that's what Fey Fel did. This is the 12-inch single for Falling In and Out of Love. Unfortunately, I do not have the ginormous poster of Lorraine Lewis. But yeah, this has the B-side, It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. So it's quite cool to hear, you know, Lorraine Lewis is the vocalist for this band. It's quite cool to hear her version of the song. Pretty standard sort of version. I mean, they don't... you know, it doesn't sound that much different as far as, you know, musically, but obviously having a female doing the vocals, it's a good song. So I quite enjoy having that. And, you know, maybe some people don't know about that B-side because they're sort of, well, they have got 2 albums out, but the first one's really the only one most people know about. And so that's a B-side from that first album, the AC/DC song, It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. Yeah, and I like it. All right, now this could be a bit controversial. I'm sure people know about these next 2 songs I'm going to talk about, but I'm not sure if people like them or like the cover versions or not. I think some people do. I think some people don't. I don't know if there's any in between. So I'm talking about the band Guns N' Roses, and this is from Use Your Illusion 2, and the cover on this song is Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is a Bob Dylan song originally. It's a good song, but I prefer the Guns N' Roses version. Yeah, I saw these guys actually in concert when they put out this album. It was like one of my first sort of concerts promoting the album. They were about 2 hours late getting on stage, but you know, I was, you know, a big fan, especially of the first album. I mean, for me, when it got to Use Your Illusion, it's a bit spotty. There's some, you know, because it's a 2 LP. You know, I mean, actually, well, I mean that each album is 2 LPs, so you've actually got 4 LPs in theory, because they're both double LPs. But lots of songs, as people have said before. You could probably have cut it down and put out one really amazing album. But you know, the singles that came out, Knocking on Heaven's Door, I think was a single. I think were really good, and yeah, I think it's a really great version. And that leads me on to the next one from Use Your Illusion number 1, Live and Let Die, which originally was a Wings song. I know that song, and it's a good song. But again, I just think Guns N' Roses improve on it. For me, that's my go-to version of the song that I want to hear. You know, I love Slash on guitar. You know, the solo that he does on it. It's great. So, like I say, it could be a bit controversial because I think some people might think the original shouldn't be touched, you know, but no, I really like it. So, yeah. All right, next one, Crocus. And from the album One Vice at a Time, they've got a song in here called American Woman. So, yeah, this originally was done by the Guess Who, which is, not a band I'm that familiar with, but yeah, they were the original, the original version of the song. It's a good song. You know, I don't mind it. You know, I think for me, I'm a big Crocus fan. I think they're underrated, although I know a lot of people like them, but I still think they're a little bit underrated. And yeah, should have been bigger, really. I mean, this album in particular is great. I mean, if you like AC/DC, you must know about these guys. This is not one of the best songs off the album, but I really think, at least at this stage, Crocus could pretty much cover any song and try, and they'd do a pretty good job making it good. And yeah, it's probably, there's a few versions out there of this song. This would be my favorite. Lenny Kravitz did a version of it, and like weirdly, it became this big hit. This is about 1999, 2000 that came out, and he had a hit with it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a massive Lenny Kravitz fan, I have to say, but I was very surprised. But it's okay. It's a good song, but I don't think his version's anything amazing. But yeah, there we go. Right, some more of my favorites. Got to put in talk about Badlands. So Voodoo Highway. Not my favorite Badlands album. Of course, there's not that many. First one's my favorite, and the song they cover on here is a song called Fire and Rain, which originally was by James Taylor, which is a good song. I really like that song, and yeah, they certainly do it justice. It's a good version of it. Is it a better version? I don't know. I mean, it's a little heavier, obviously, but Ray Gillen's got a great voice, so he and Jakey Lee as well on guitar. So musicianship's great. Yeah, it's really good. I think it was a good choice for them to do as a cover song, and yeah, I enjoy it. But yeah, like I say, that album not as good for me as their first album. All right, next one, Great White, and they've done quite a few covers actually, but I'm just talking about today. I'm just going to talk about one song. I'm going to talk about Face the Day. So this is from Shot in the Dark. So this is actually originally a song done by the Angels, which are kind of a similar band. At least they're kind of similar to the way Great White was sounding around this time. So this album, 1986, this came out, and their version, I think, the Angels, or sometimes they're known as Angel City, it came out in around 1980. But I mean, both versions are good. The Angels do. The original is really good. This is a good version too. But I guess it could be one of those situations where they thought that's a good song. Probably wasn't a big hit. Outside of maybe because Angels are quite big in Australia, down under here. They're kind of well known. I'm not sure so much on the other side of the world. So maybe they thought this is a good song. Should have been bigger. Maybe we can make it a hit, but I don't think it was a hit for them either. But it is a good song, and yeah, I mean, some people may not even know that it's a cover song. But yeah, and of course, they did end up having a big hit with Once Bitten, Twice Shy, which I think I talked about as in my last episode when I talked about hair metal hits. You're not a fan of that one, which some people disagreed with. Can you believe that? Next up, Whitesnake, Live in the Heart of the City, is the first time I heard Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City. And originally I just thought, oh, this is a cool song. Didn't know it was a cover song. And, Whitesnake really make it their own. This could be one of those situations where the cover version is better. Of course, the original is, well, for me, one I hadn't really heard before. I sort of had to look it up. Bobby Bland did the original. And it's I think it might be like from the 60s or late 60s or something. Or maybe, maybe it's not. Maybe it's early 70s. But either way, it's more sort of R&B, it's not rock really. So this is not super heavy, right? But they've just got the blues and the hard rock mixed together on that song. And it's a good song. I mean, in this version too, the live version I think is really good. 7 minutes, 32 seconds. But it's my go-to version of that song. And David Coverdale on vocals, he really carries that song. Right, another one I like. This is Kathmandu, and I did know actually when I heard this that this was a cover song talking about God Part 2. I did know it was on a U2 album, Rattle and Hum, but I didn't have the album, or I wasn't a huge U2 fan. But I knew about the band. Obviously I knew about U2. I knew about the song. But I hadn't really heard it before. So my first time probably hearing the song was when I heard this album. It's a really good song. I think it's kind of surprising in some ways U2 aren't covered a little bit more, because they've got some good songs, and I think you add a little bit more hard rock or metal to their songs, they could be more appealing to me. Not saying I don't like U2, but I think the reason I don't like them as much as perhaps I could is they didn't quite crank it up as much as I would like. But yeah, I mean, this is just a little bit heavier, but still great vocals. Dave King, I think, is the vocalist in here, who was, of course, in Fastway. It's a one and done sort of album, but yeah, it's a good album, and their version of the song is good. It's a good song, really good, well written song, good song. Yeah, I enjoy that one. So yeah, God Part 2. I don't think there's a God Part 1. I think that's just what they called it. Next one, Helix. Now this is Gimme Gimme Good Lovin'. Now the first time I heard this song was actually watching Kerrang videotape, where it was the music video for Gimme Gimme Good Lovin'. And if you haven't seen their music video for that song, you probably should check it out. And yeah, there's if you can see the uncensored version as well, then I recommend that one. Played that video a lot back in the day. Not so much necessarily because I love the song, but you'll know what I mean if you see the music video. But I do like the song. And supposedly it was originally done by a band called Crazy Elephant. It's a band I'm really not familiar with at all. But the interesting thing that it is a cover song, right? So it's a cover song. The song came out in like 1969 by Crazy Elephant, and they haven't changed the lyrics at all. Check out the lyrics. The lyrics for 1969, they sound like totally they've been written for a hair metal band. So it totally fits these guys in the music video, and yeah, good song. And yeah, just a memorable one for me as far as the music video, and yeah, hearing that back in the day. I wasn't a massive Helix fan. Back in the day, it wasn't necessarily easy to get their albums. Canadian band, of course, and they never really broke huge, but they've got quite a few albums, and eventually, caught up with all their stuff. Keel. Now, this is another one I heard back in the day, and I initially didn't know it was a cover song. And it's a good song. It's called Because the Night. I think it might have been put out as a single. I'm not sure about that, but really good song. It's of course originally it's actually done by Patti Smith, and is written by co-written by Bruce Springsteen. So but that came out I think late 70s. But I like their version of it. It's really good. It's a good song. The bottom line is, again, a good song is a good song, and this is a good song. So enjoyed that. Enjoyed the version of this of the song on this album. So and then I think I found out later, it's a cover song. I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, good song. Next one, Iggy Park. Now they do a version of My Generation. Of course, originally that's by the band The Who. Probably not a song that really needed to be covered, but it kind of seemed appropriate for a Russian band like Iggy Park to do a song like that. So I kind of don't mind it, and it's probably quite a good choice. It's kind of like a bit of an anthem for them. Of course, a lot of these Russian bands, they didn't necessarily have access to a lot of music, from my understanding, but they knew a lot of those classic bands. I guess they knew about The Who, and so they were pretty keen on putting that on their album. But also, I don't know, I just think it felt like an appropriate song to put out. But not bad. They did a pretty reasonable version of it. All right, and then next up we've got a band called Girl. This is from Cher Greed. Girl probably most well known for the fact, there's a couple of reasons maybe. So you've got Phil Lewis, who goes on to be in LA Guns, and then you've got Phil Collin, who goes on to be in Def Leppard. So they're the two kind of guys that sort of leave this band and then go on to bigger bands. But they do a song, they cover Do You Love Me, which is, of course, originally a Kiss song. Really good version. I mean, to me, I'm happy hearing the Kiss version or the Girl version. They're both good. Good song. Good song. Of course, they end up being a band that gets covered because the song My Number is a song that Lillian Axe covered. And also they've got a song called Hollywood Tease, which I guess Phil Lewis takes to LA Guns. So LA Guns do a version of Hollywood Tease. And it's a good early 80s sort of hard rock album. All right, and then last up, last one I'm going to talk about is sort of the favourites. I do like this song. It's one of those interesting ones where it's been covered many, many times. It's a little bit like Hide Your Heart by Kiss, which is covered by multiple artists. It's not that one. I'm talking about Hot Cherry. So originally it came out by a guy called Danny Spanos. It was on the Passion in the Dark EP. It's only I think got 5 tracks on it, so it was on that, but it was originally actually written by a band called Street Heart, and I don't have the version, but I think it then gets released in 84 on their, I think, Hidden Treasures album it's called, so it's kind of like unreleased songs. So originally Danny Spanos put it out, then Street Heart on their sort of Hidden Treasures album, and then it comes out for the third time. The guy called Steve Thompson puts it out. This is in 1990. He did from time to time cover other people's songs. So he does a version of it. And then probably the most well-known version, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably the most well-known, is Hardline. They do a version of it from Double Eclipse. I think it's probably well-known because I think it was also released as a single. Double Eclipse, and they have a version of Hot Cherry. And it's a good song. It's not like Hide Your Heart. It's a good song, but, does it really need to be covered so many times? I guess one of those situations where they're like, come on, this has got to be a hit. This time maybe it'll work. And in the end, I don't think it really became a big hit for anyone. But, there we go. Right, so they're my favourites. I don't like to be negative, but when I'm talking about, I guess now I'm going to start talking about some of my least favourites. And again, it's not necessarily that I don't like the band or that they don't do a good version of it. It's just like the song itself isn't that great, so it's going to be difficult for me to like it. So FM, Taking It to the Streets, they put out this album 91, I think it is. 1991, and I heard it through the grapevine. They did a cover of that song. Originally done by Gladys Knight and the Pips, but I think it's probably most well known as a song done by Marvin Gaye. I think this is one of those examples, I could be wrong, where maybe the record company have said, look, I think it would be good to put this song on here. I think it could be a hit. Michael Bolton had a hit covering On the Dock of the Bay. It was also by Marvin Gaye. Maybe they thought this would work. It's got horns on it, so that's always not a good thing for me. FM are a good band, but I didn't think this needed to be on the album. It's the second song on the album, released as a single. Not a big fan of that one. This is an interesting one. This is him and Z German and friends. I'm really surprised this guy got like his own album. I mean, he's the drummer in Scorpions at the time. There are some good songs on here. Destiny's a good one. I think it's got Don Dokken on vocals for that one. But he does a version of Wipeout, which is probably one of the most successful instrumental songs of all time. Originally done by the Safaris. It's okay version. It never really done much for me. Interestingly enough, there's a music video for it as well. So I think it was released as a single. There was definitely a music video, but I don't know. It wouldn't have been the song I would have released if I was Herman. All right, now this is pretty infamous. Judas Priest from Ram It Down and Johnny Be Good. So originally done by Chuck Berry. Johnny Be Good is actually also the name of the movie that it's from, so it's on the soundtrack. I don't know what Judas Priest were thinking, but again, maybe it's record company pressure. I don't mind this album. It's actually got some good songs on it, but Johnny Be Good, I have to say, is bad. All right. Actually, there's not that many that's my least favourite, but we got a few more to go. I was never a big fan of Born to Be Wild being covered, and it's been covered quite a few times, and debatable, and maybe there's some other bands too where it's debatable. Is this actually a hair metal band? But anyway, I'll talk about it. So the Cult, they did a version of Born to Be Wild initially by Stephen Wolf. The song itself is fine, but I just don't think a band needs to cover that. Mind Warp did a version of it, and it's not on all versions of the album. I don't know why, but it is on some versions of this album, and I mean they do a totally okay job. But I think I feel like quite over that song, so don't really need to hear another version of it. Now, next one, Britney Fox, and this is from their debut album. Now they're trying to do what Quite Right did and cover a Slade song and have a hit. So they do Goodbye to Jane. So I don't actually know if they even released it as a single, but it is on the album. But, probably not a great idea to sort of basically, if one band's covered, a song by a well-known band, you're covering their song and you're also a hair metal type band, it sort of seems like you're just copying their idea. But anyway, and I'm not a fan of that song, or really, I'm not a big fan of Slade in general. Lock Up Your Daughters, I really like that song. And talking of covers, Lion do a great cover version of Lock Up Your Daughters. But for the most part, most Slade songs I don't like that much. So if it's going to be covered, I'm probably not going to like the cover version. Now this next one, Duro, of course, from Warlock, decided for some bizarre reason to start her album off with A Whiter Shade of Pale. Now, I can understand maybe you're going to put it on the album. Maybe you're going to release it as a single. It was the first single, I think. There's a music video, but it's also the first song on the album. This is actually quite a heavy album. It rocks pretty hard. I mean, it's probably not as heavy as the stuff she was doing on Warlock, but some good, heavy stuff on it. But, it started off with a whiter shade of pale, and I can imagine there might have been some people who heard that song and thought, oh, yeah, that's quite a nice song. I like that version of it. Go and get the album, and then be like, well, this is like heavy metal. It's like, yeah, for the most part, this is heavy metal, and you got that song first up. So, yeah, just otherwise though, at least the album is a completely different album after that one song. But it also just the track listing too, like having it first, very strange. And yeah, there we go. I'm actually finished. So one thing will finish with, I don't actually have a vinyl copy of this, but this is Joan Jet and the hit list. I got it on cassette. And that's something sometimes bands do. They'll put out an album which is just all covers. I think Saxon's done it, put out a couple of albums recently with doing that. Yeah, and not usually a fan. But it's always interesting to hear. I am always interested to hear it. So I wonder what their versions of these songs will sound like. But often I'm like, they're okay, or just the original though is fine, not something I really needed. But sometimes as well, especially when they do those they cover some more obscure songs, you find out about songs you never heard of, and you think, I actually really like that song. But so it can be good. In that way, I suppose as well. But there we go. So that's part one. There's many more cover songs by hair metal bands that I will cover. Now, of course, and I'm saying hair metal bands, and I've shown bands like The Cult, and I just showed Joan Jet. I know some people are going to say, well, they're not hair metal, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Bands or artists who came out around that period and were sort of touring or putting out music around the same time as the sort of peak of hair metal. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think about some of the songs I considered my favourite and some of the songs I considered not my favourite. And like I say, there will be a part two, so I haven't covered everything yet. All right, hit the thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, it's great to see a few people subscribing recently, so getting close to 500 subs. It'd be great to get up to that. If you haven't subbed, please do that, and I'll be back later. All right, catch you later. See ya.